I guess first off, I want to thank everyone. I know this is kind of the informal start of our day. We've got a big one coming up. It is, we always start off with the BC and I don't know, it started that way, but BC and I kind of talking, and we spend hours preparing this speech.
I know we had like 2 hours last night, an hour or two on Friday, and then just countless amounts of time prepping this whole shebang.
Yeah. And here I'm going to run through just so I call this to order. I call the conference to order. Hi, Annie. Hey, so here we go. I'm going to go through and I'll do the minutes of our planning session for this. So hold on. The planning session for this opening thing with BC and I started as my text to BC yesterday at 10:31 a.m. So it's you and I opening up the conference with our normal State of Higher Ed morning coffee on day one. Winging it like usual, I assume. LOL. And then BC. So next in the minutes is BC. That's what I was thinking. Going to look over the Slack channel. So I think that's there's some other words we shouldn't say, but we'll edit that part. Everything in higher ed is insert expletive. So also everyone, I think there's a few people who have been made, who have been made co-hosts. So if you could, make sure you admit people as you see them come in. A couple of housekeeping things, everyone. Just to note, this whole conference is about community. This is really what makes us different than a lot of other conferences you'll see. We really believe that we are, by our people and for our people. And so therefore, I encourage you do two things. Don't be afraid to jump in and have conversations. One thing you will see is that the chat goes off, put your conversations in there, make connections, and also change your name if you can to where you're from. Even if you're a manufacturer, if you're an integrator, if you're one of our partners, or what school you're from. This is an opportunity for everybody to come together and connect. We know that as an industry, we are stronger when we are together. So we want to know who you're from. We know there's a lot of flies on the wall who will jump in and out, but this is our opportunity, your opportunity to connect. So I encourage you to do that. Other housekeeping to note there, if you click breakout rooms, so you have to have, I think when we did this last year is when they just announced breakout rooms. So most people didn't have the app. We weren't updated on Zoom for that, but down below, breakout rooms. If you click that, you will see that we have a handful of breakout rooms ready, okay? So here's how this works. When you go through the session, okay, and whenever we do our breakouts, so all main keynotes will happen here. Networking lunch happens here. Our happy hour happens here. Breakout rooms happen in those breakout rooms. So all you do is you jump yourself in there. If you're going to attend the tech manager panel, you jump into the tech manager panel. You hop out. If you're going to one of the manufacturer sessions, like Aurora is coming up next, you jump into the Aurora one and you attend there. Everything is based on jumping around. Also, this is a great opportunity if you want to talk to some of the manufacturers and you want to have a more in-depth conversation, jump into the room with them. Send them a direct message, say, can we jump into your room and have a conversation? If you want to hear more about what they talked about, have the conversation. This is what makes it special. This is your time to be able to do that. So I think I'm sure there's more. Oh, the other housekeeping. If you are a HETMA moderator or in any of the sessions, make sure that I make you a co-host each day, because we need you to do the recording. Okay, so the recordings have to be done for someone who's a co-host within each room each day. So that is a note. If you are in there, make sure you get the recording, and you'll get the recording off to Troy for him to go through the misery of having to post them all. So, so that being said, BC.
Yes, sir.
What a year.
It's been something, man. Define year. Is that we're talking about since January 1st? Are we talking about academic? It's all relative at this point, right?
I know year. How about year since? I think I start a year as in since Friday the 13th, March 13th, 2020. It's all been one long year.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's very, very accurate. Very accurate indeed.
So it's interesting, and I think that this is what we were talking about as we started opening up, and people were having our coffee, and where we've been. And Raul really started talking about it. You and I had this, and I'm thinking back to last year. I'm sitting there in a classroom that Jimmy and I converted into kind of making a production studio to run this conference in the midst of a global pandemic. And you and I said, we have big plans. We have no idea what it's going to look like. We talked about, the approved program. We talked about how are we going to fix our DEI issue? Because remember, we made that goal after being called out from Caden. We're going to make sure every session has equal representation. Feel like, we did that. We were proud of that. I think there might have been one exception or something like that. But nonetheless, that was exactly how, it ended up playing out. Your thoughts in this last year? Kind of go back from that conversation to where we are right now.
It is kind of astounding at how far this has come, especially with just the normal day-to-day challenges of our positions and managing families and home lives in the middle of all this madness. But I mean, I know after our prep text messages yesterday, I really was thinking about everything and how far HETMA has come since the key was turned, so to speak, on that first website. I mean, we've got the approved program up. Donovan has done an amazing job and very heavy lift in getting that going. We've got our products out there now being evaluated. We've got the PRISM scholarship in place, and that's working. I think Caden calling us out and really bringing that DEI issue to the forefront, really helped us focus in on not only a problem with our organization, but a problem with the AV industry as a whole. And I think we're trying to take positive, substantive steps to improve that. And I think that message is getting out there. And our membership continues to grow, which is extremely encouraging. I mean, look, it's at Central Time, it's 9:36 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I see 81 participants, listening to us blabber about our thoughts on higher ed and where HETMA is. So, I mean, it's just really astounding at how far things have come, and just the continued energy around this whole initiative. And it doesn't feel like it's ours anymore, ours being that relative term between you and I. It feels like it's really the community's initiative at this point. We're just kind of trying to help shepherd it and see where everybody else wants to take it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I think you said something that hit me, and, that it's not ours. And I've said all along, that this organization, and you and I have said this, if it's us doing it, it's going to fail. It has to grow beyond us. And I think even when we had our steering committee of 10, that really was the big boost to say, okay, we're going to do something. We're going to make it an org. But if you look back now and realize the things that we're doing have nothing to do with us, the way this organization has been able to say it has, I don't know the right way to say this. It has a philosophical belief foundation behind it, which is really what I think is going to make this successful. The principles that we were, both called out on and that we always believe, like, for example, membership must always be free for someone in higher ed, period. But now that even if we're getting sponsors and stuff now, higher ed, like the basic core principles have made this go where I don't know that we could have thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And I think that's healthy for an organization like ours. I think it's good that you know, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we brought in folks that shored up those weak spots and have really kind of helped grow this. I mean, again, it's we could only take this thing so far, and it's just really encouraging to see how, I mean, when we put out that first call for a steering committee, and then for the nominations, and anytime we have any initiatives that need help, it just seems like everybody wants to pitch in, jump in, and do something. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, is everybody wants to do something. And I think that's very natural for our positions, because we're called upon on a daily basis to do something to help, to fix things, to work with our faculty and students to help make their experiences better. And I think that just naturally translates to our organization. And you know, again, it's, you know, Joe and I might be up here talking, but it's only just because of everybody else's encouragement and willingness to participate that we're able to do things like this conference, and do things like the Prism Scholarship, and basically the Infocom takeover that took place last year from HETMA. So, you know, it's hats off to you all. It's been an amazing ride so far, and I think we're still just really starting to build momentum. We're nowhere near where we want to be yet.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. And if we even take it from, you know, where we are and what we're going to be doing, we only have a few months until, you know, Infocom again, where we want to blow it out of the water even further, bigger than we just did. And, you know, and again, I'm for tomorrow. I'm not here to prep for tomorrow's keynote, but boy, the moderator for tomorrow's keynote is one of the best in the industry. Now, we're actually having a few of our media professionals come and join me on a panel, and and I actually did do a prep meeting with them. See, I actually, you know, so maybe I respect them more than UBC. I don't know.
It's entirely possible, and I'm okay with it.
And but something was brought up, and Cindy asked a question about, to me, like, so when did you start seeing a change in the industry for higher ed? And I want to actually throw this out. I'm interested to see if people want to throw some comments in the chat, see if you agree with me or not. There's only two ways you can be. You can be either right or wrong. Agree with me and you're right, and you disagree, you're wrong. But just kidding. It was about this 5 or 6 year mark. And I've told this story before. When I first went to Cal Baptist, so they're basically 6 years. I've been in the higher ed vertical for about 6 years. And I went to my first Infocom after going to higher ed. And I had the little badge, right? Little badge that said education strip in it. And no one would talk to me. Like, they're pushing you aside, and it's like they're rep, and they're, yeah, here's the shiny things on a wall. And then about 3 years ago, that started to change, right? Like, so that was it. And then it moved forward. 3 years ago, we saw a change. Now, when we show up and it says education, we're being chauffeured out to the hush rooms.
Right. And
that's a change, right? Now let's look forward. When we have things like the approved program, where I'm really excited to, you know, announce we have both Bose and Hudley on, working with getting Williams AV coming in, where we're actually evaluating product and putting that, not necessarily a value judgment, whether it's good or bad, but does it match the needs of our vertical? And to put that stamp on it. Already some great companies that are coming in and we're partnering with in a big way to help drive product development, right? And I think that's a big change. So where that wasn't the case. And I think that's where we're going to start seeing a difference. And where can our influence be in higher ed? And I believe that that's where we almost have a responsibility. If we want to play with the big boys and we want that treatment, like a lot of others, you know, bigger integrators get and all of that stuff, that we might have we have a responsibility to stand up and, you know, I don't know what the right word is, but right. Do you see?
I know where you're going, and I think you're right about, you know, once we started getting those invitations to look at these products that are in development and whatnot, I think that tide shifted when the first person said, you know, this is great, but you know what I really need? And then started expressing their opinion directly to the decision makers. You know, at that point, we became, I guess, more of a data point in what they want to set and what they're looking to sell. And like you say, if you buy one thing, you're buying 200 of them, right? We'll just multiply that across the higher ed industry. I mean, you've got if you look at the kind of like the overall scope, you've got houses of worship, they do some big projects. You've got stadiums and entertainment venues, they do some big projects. But I mean, thinking back, or just kind of looking at a big picture, higher ed really does an extreme volume of purchasing. I mean, you've got campuses that might do anywhere from 10 to 30 rooms in a summer or in an upgrade cycle. But I mean, if you look at a region, that could be, I don't know, a few thousand in a specific region, and you multiply that across the country, that's a big chunk. And I think once they finally started looking at, hey, it's not just this room, or the occasional building, this is a sustained buying effort on these people. Let's listen and see what products they want. If we can get out ahead of, X competition, then hey, we're kind of making progress there. I think that's just the next evolution is our positions is kind of in that weird middle spot. We're not necessarily end users, not necessarily integrators. We kind of play both roles. So we see things from a unique perspective. We know what the end users want, but we also know how it needs to work within our campus systems. Therefore, it just makes it natural for us to be able to really do it.
Yeah. I love that. So tell me, when we have this conversation again next February, what are you looking about? What do you say then to say this year where we've gone to where we're going to be? One, how, I guess part of it is how will higher ed have changed as we come back, and what is our purpose going to be? And as an org itself, how will have been successful going from right now to next year?
Right. So I'm looking at higher ed as an overall, Joe, I really don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where I know last year we were all like, hybrid is the future, hybrid is where everything's going to be. Now I'm seeing chatter and seeing things in my own environment. That pendulum's swinging back the other way. It's like, well, let's tap the brakes on this whole hybrid thing. It was great while it lasted, but we're still an in-person business. We still have to have students on campus, which is great for community building. So I mean, I think hybrid's still going to be a thing. Is it as big as we thought a year ago? Maybe, maybe not. The education environment is so dynamic anymore that it's really not as easy to forecast a year, 2, 3 out as it used to be. Yeah. So I think and again, a lot of it too is regional. It's like, what is the South going to do versus what is the Midwest going to do? What do those environments look like? I think it's still honestly too soon to tell what we're really going to be talking about this time next year. I think by the time the summer rolls around, we'll have a little bit better of an idea. Now, as an org, where we're going to be and what we're going to be talking about next year, I would really like to really kind of take a look back and say, hey, this year we evaluated X number of approved products, and here's where they at. And then at InfoComm, we were able to really have a presence there where our seal of approval, our stamp of approval is looked at as the same way as a Rave Best in Show, an AV Technology Magazine Best in Show. I would really like us to be something that is looked at as an industry as a whole as, hey, the HETMA crew approved it, therefore we know it's going to work. Mm-hmm. I would like us to also kind of, I know we've talked about this, and it kind of fits the theme of the conference is like, what is a standard? Like we've got this approved program, this works, but how does it fit within a standard? What's a standard? Who decides the standard? I think we still have such an untapped resource pool. By this time next year, we're really going to be talking about, maybe HETMA writes an official standards spec. Maybe we start working with more manufacturers and actually get a HETMA branded product out there on the market. And I think the sky's the limit, to be honest with you, Joe. I would love to say I know exactly where we're going to be, but I think the environment's going to take us where it takes us, and we just got to be able to ride that wave and know where to take it.
Yeah. I actually completely agree with you. I was ready to have an additional point or two, but I think you nailed them all. And I think that's the important part, right? If we look at what do we want to be as an org, the only thing I'm going to add on, and this is something that, I don't know how to say this. I'm looking forward to the day where it's not, and don't take this personally, BC, it's not you and I doing this, that the torch has been passed.
No,
that's when the org is successful.
I agree. I totally 100% agree. That's the mark of an organization, is once one set of leadership leaves and the next set steps up, is that success going to be sustained? Mm-hmm. And that's how you know you've built something good, is that success is sustained. And honestly, looking at our board of directors and looking at our membership staff or our membership, and I have zero doubt that this org is going to carry on way past us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we look now, one of the biggest changes that people are going to notice from last year to this year, I think, this is kind of a business meeting. Let's get down to business. One of the big changes is, when we do our conferences, we obviously select our tech manager panels. We decide the kind of themes for the day. We invite people in. We've always invited our manufacturers to come and talk to us. This year, they're all sponsors, right? So flat out, people have paid to be here, okay, just so you know. But that said, I think this is the change that we need to start to make, to start to partner in with the org, so other organizations within our industry, so that we can become a part of sitting down at the table with everybody, right? We have becoming an actual 501c3 was a big step. I know it's literally like going down to City Hall and filing something. Okay, I know, and it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal for our org and the ideas of what we want to do. So as we start to look to the future, and I think that's been the biggest change this year. And if I want to align us to the way higher ed has been treated throughout the AV industry over the last 5 to 6 years, is to be a player at the table. Are we going to be an SCA? Are we going to be a PSNI? Are we going to be an org that can stand up for our people, which is what we've always said that we want to be? And this is where I think important things like our PRISM scholarship, like the fact that we are building into our people and saying, we can take this further than, a few beers that Joe and BC had and said, what if we could kind of do something? We're beyond that. I always want to stop talking about those stories and start talking about the change that can be made, because, lamppost, boom, flag posted. Okay, we're an org, we're going, but now's the real start. Now's the real future. Now is where we want to be able to see, how our people can move it forward. And I'll say, not because of us, but despite us, can they do it better? And that's the challenge I have for everyone in higher ed. We love our orgs, we love our community together, but what difference and what change are we going to make? Are we going to stand up and say, not only do we want you to give us a seat at the table, not only do we want things like buy direct, not only do we want these things, but we deserve it. And this is why, right?
No,
Was that my soapbox for the day?
That was great. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you nailed it. I mean, we are an advocacy group at our core. That is what we spun up for. We just, when we did this, we intentionally said we're not going to be just a group of tech managers getting together, swapping stories or things like that. We're going to be demanding a seat at the table. And I think that we're reaching the point where we can do that. I think we've got enough plates spinning and enough organizational influence now where we can start making that impact. And again, you hit it right. If organizations like Avexa are paying attention to us and giving us airtime, so to speak, I think that's a testament to the fact that we're in a position now to be able to start stressing those conversations.
Yep, 100%. And I love that. I think that's a good way to leave it, because I know we have our And by the way, I'm going through the chat. I love it. I keep forgetting, it's so hard to have a conversation and go through the chat. The chat's where it's at, everybody. So make sure you stay in the chat. Don't listen to me blabber on.
And if this is your first HETMA conference, I know we've said it before, but I can't stress it enough. The chat is the main value of this conference. that is where all of the topics, we actually mine that for research topics on what our next conferences are going to be like, or what our next topics are going to be like when we do podcasts or newsletters or whatever. I mean, that's where the real interaction comes from, is the chat. So do not be afraid to jump in with both feet and really get involved. That's the only way that we're really going to get a ton of benefit from this.
Yep, totally agree. So that being said, we are going to